because we can read it. Speed reads.
And I'm sorry to hear you have a cold.
There you go.
I think that baby has it in for me. Every time she gets a cough, I get whatever's worse.
Plug that in for you. There you go.
Thank you. I'm gonna get some water.
Hello, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, and you? Thank you for being there. Was that only this morning?
What's that?
Was that this morning?
Yeah,
This was a long day.
Yeah, that was great.
It was great.
Yeah, I went last year as well, but it's grown considerably.
That is a great idea.
Oh, Dana's here. Dana.
Oh, she is.
Is everybody set? It says I have to be added to the roll call. Are you? No?
Well, oh, just add her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so she can start the reconvene.
She'll add you in. Yes.
So just do I need a motion?
No,
Just do it.
just do it. Just hit the gavel and start.
Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. We were in executive session. We are now back into regular session. I would like to start with a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. The pledge will be led by Riggs Miller, a senior at Cactus. Please stand.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, item number 4, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda.
There's one.
There's one.
Mr. Hightower?
All right, excuse me Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all. Of course, my name is Mr. Hightower. I do work at one of the schools here, and there's some issues that I would like to hopefully bring to you all's attention, and it's my duty to bring this to you. Can't go through all of them. Only have 3 minutes. I understand that. First thing is going over the paraprofessional salary and wages. After doing some research, it's kind of low. And for what we do, if we're certified, I think that it should be increased a little bit, especially it's for what we do. A lot of times we are standing in for teachers if they're not there, and if they have to step out for a second or two. But I think that looking at the national average for paraprofessionals, that the wages are a little bit low. That's the first item. I'm going to move down quickly to, and first off, I'm sorry to ask, do you all have a copy of what I'm reading? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, appreciate it. We'll drop down to item number 4, which is the ADA. Not all the schools are wheelchair accessible. And I know at our school, we have 3 or 4 students who have them and a staff member, and there's nothing for them to actually, it's not for them. So something needs to hopefully be done addressing that, because seeing the one staff member trying to get through with her wheelchair, and it's just people trying to help her, it's just really not, it's not fair. I'm sorry, but I'm going to move on from there. Coming down to item number 8, the social inequality awareness. I think that's very important. I know the district I came from in Virginia, which is Loudoun County, that was very important because there is a significant educational gap, and it is very important. It'd be amazing to see how these kids actually react, even for me being there. I had a kid last year who was really not doing that well in school. Then this year he comes up, he's got straight A's. He was so happy to show me. So it's, I do what I can from my level to teach about college at a middle school level to get them excited and things of that nature. So it's very important that we try to make sure that not only the staff, the parents, and the teachers, and the students know that that's something that we really need to work on as well. The last one, the last item, again, I don't like bringing problems to the table and not also offering a solution. We do have an outreach program department at Loudoun County, and it works very well. So they are pretty much in charge of parent liaisons, which I think would be a great addition to have for the schools. Also, they're in charge of handling cultural awareness and diversity. I added in student volunteer program for the high schoolers, because that way they can start building up volunteer hours for scholarships and things of that nature as well. Preschool literacy liaison, minority student advisory committee, and I think we should probably bring back the DARE program. Even for me, I see signs of gang paraphernalia, kids joking that they're in a gang, things of that nature. It's very serious. And I think that if we start to bring this to the table, even at the middle school level, it would have a bigger impact because they really don't understand what it entails. So if we educate them early, then they'll know that, you know what, that's not even anything to joke about or to play around with or to even get involved with. And a lot of these things need to be addressed at the beginning of the school year. All of these things, there needs to be a big assembly, and whatever principals need to stand up and say, this is what we accept, this is what we're not going to accept. We're not going to accept bullying, things of that nature, so forth and so on. These things are not being addressed at all, and the kids don't know, the parents don't know. So I think some of these items that I did list here are important, and I just want to make sure that, again, it's my duty as a citizen and as an employee, that it's important that you all might see some things that might have been missed. So again, I appreciate your time. I thank you, and again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, next agenda item, staff recognitions. Mrs. Aries, welcome.
Good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Proud to bring forward yet another special recognition for you all this evening. Tonight, it is one of our highly esteemed teachers in our districts. We're very pleased to be honoring her this evening. Give you a little bit of a background on who we're going to be celebrating. The Arizona Council on Economic Education, or ACEE, recently announced their 2017 Champions in Education, and we are so proud to share that one of their award recipients is one of our very own teachers. Raymond S. Kellis Social Studies and Economics teacher Michelle Bentavenia was named the 2017 Economic Education Teacher of the Year. If we can give her a huge round of applause as she stands. Share just a little bit more about her before I invite her here before you so you can offer some congratulations her way. Michelle was selected based upon her continuous improvement as a teacher through professional development, engaging students, and supporting peers in the teaching or learning of economics and financial literacy. After taking some time to stay home for a little while, Michelle returned to the workforce to teach high school in 2013 and immediately reconnected with ACEE and offered ideas and suggestions to the ACEE leadership that would ultimately assist more teachers in economic education. Michelle successfully completed the Teacher Advisor Training Program just last year. She also successfully worked to institute regular professional development days, including teacher training, and was selected as the 2015 Education Advisory Group, selected as a member of the advisory group with the Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco, and in hopes of expanding education opportunities to even more teachers and students in Arizona. So as you can share with me, we are very, very proud of her accomplishments. You should note that only 2 teachers are selected each year out of more than 1,500 candidates, and so we really couldn't be more pleased to celebrate this achievement alongside her this evening. You should note she will be officially honored at a special gala that is taking place. It'll be emceed by 12 News anchor Tram Mai, and she will be receiving an all-expense-paid trip to New York City this fall to attend the National Economic Education Conference. So, Michelle, we are just incredibly proud of you. Again, before I invite you up, I know we have Principal Mr. Jeff Wooten here from Raymond S. Kellis. He's over here. Mr. Wooten, can you stand? Big congratulations. And I'm sure your campus is sharing in this achievement as well, so thank you for representing. Governing board members, it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Bentavenia to you and invite her up to the podium for any remarks.
Well, thank you very much. Let me start with Judy. Ms. Doan?
Well, I'm going to keep it short. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you. Good work.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, agreed, and thank you for even just being innovative and creating this strong relationship with this ACAE and really thinking of, really all teachers and how they can benefit, from that relationship. So everything that you do every day impacts, 37,000 plus, and certainly those at Kellis, but really appreciate your passion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
Congratulations, Mrs. Bentavenia. Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, very good. So out in the community, economics and financial literacy is one of the areas that the public asks about quite frequently, and I think having a superstar like you amongst our ranks is really an asset to this school district, so we appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
There we go. Well, congratulations. We are honored to have you, and 2 things I want to highlight. One, that you service a population that definitely needs that type of intervention with financial literacy. I look forward to seeing where our district can invite you to the curriculum table to have that discussion. And from my understanding, you completed a year training. Is that correct?
Yes, with the Arizona Council, and this is my 2nd year with
Excellent.
the council in the teacher training program.
Excellent. So I look forward to seeing where our district can leverage those trainings at the district level. Thank you so much.
And I just wanted to congratulate you also, and thank you so much for being here. And I just would like to tell you that our daughters would be so envious that you're going to New York City coming
Yeah.
up. Thank you.
Actually, next Thursday and Friday.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
the national conference last year was in Phoenix, and then this year it'll be next week, Thursday, well, Friday and Saturday. Thursday's a travel day.
Okay, I'm sure you will have a good time. Try to do something in New York City.
Okay, I will. And I would like to just take a minute just to
Sure.
thank the board. My whole teaching career has been with Peoria Unified School District. I'd like to thank my principal for the support he's given me through the years that I've been at Cullis. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
President Pingarelli, if I may, just one additional recognition for you this evening. And this one you may not have noted on your agenda because it's a bit of a surprise recognition. To give you just a quick history lesson, in 1992, the Board of Directors of the Arizona School Boards Association, or as you all know them as ASBA, adopted the Academy of Boardsmanship program to recognize the continuing education and in-service development of our local school board members, just like all of you. The awards given under the Academy program are a recognition for completing significant accomplishments in a specific program or continuing education and training so that board members are well equipped with the knowledge and techniques that really are critical for the role in which you are all serving. I am very pleased to share with you that we had a number of you receive awards just this past week, in fact, for some achievements and milestones that you have completed through your work that you've done with ASBA. So if you don't mind, if I might note a few of them for you tonight. Pleased to share that Mrs. Monica Ceja Martinez received a certificate of orientation with 16.33 units completed. So congratulations to you, Mrs. Ceja Martinez. Ms. Judy Doan received a certificate of boardsmanship for 39.57 units completed. Thank you for all of your work, Ms. Doan. Mrs. Kathy Connect received a turquoise award for an impressive 365 units completed. So thank you for that. That's quite an achievement and actually a separate tier within the awards that they provide through the STARS program at ASBA. So
Just means that I'm old.
well, that part's not in my script. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Sandoval also received a certificate of orientation with 17.33 units completed. So a very big congratulations to you, Mr. Sandoval. We certainly appreciate, on behalf of all of our staff, we appreciate the work that you all put in. It is a volunteer position, and it certainly is a lot of hours that you serve here, helping students and staff in our district and serving our community. So we want to let you know how much we really do appreciate you for all of your work. Mrs. Ceja Martinez, I have your certificate that you weren't able to receive, and also for you, Mr. Sandoval. So if you don't mind, if we can present those to you and take your picture maybe in front of the boardroom tonight.
Go ahead. I'm going to get out of the way.
Our other two, I don't suppose you have your awards with you, but we'd certainly love to get your photo as well, if you'd like to come around so we could take it.
Sure, and I'm just going to I'm not trying not to nitpick, but we're really not volunteers. Because volunteers is like, I'll do it, right? We are unpaid elected officials.
There you go, unpaid elected officials. Thank you for that. We'll Photoshop your awards in, Mrs. Connect and Mrs. Doan. Congratulations. Thank you, President Pingarelli.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, if I could jump in on turn on my microphone. If I could jump in and share 3 more recognitions real quick. I'm extremely pleased to share that Peoria Unified has 2 programs that are finalists in Westmark's Best of the West Awards. We were informed late yesterday that both the Met Professional Academy and our CTE program are in the running, and knowing what an esteemed award this is, we are so pleased to have not 1, but 2 programs we submitted up for consideration. We will find out whether or not we won at the award ceremony on November 2nd. This is a big deal. At Centennial High School's marching band, led by the awesome Kate Manosco, was invited to play the national anthem at the Arizona Diamondbacks game on September 24th. And it was an exciting game, and they must have brought good luck because that's where they clinched their wild card and get into the playoffs there. So I'm going to blame Centennial that the Diamondbacks are there. And from Liberty High School, congratulations to their football coach, Mr. Mark Smith, who won the Cardinals Coach of the Week for their recent win against Verrado. Great work, Coach Smith. There were pictures going around the district comparing him with the Cardinals coach and the Liberty coach. They were looking pretty darn good. Here endeth my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next item, item number 6, board recognitions. Let's see, let's start with Mrs. Connect.
I do have a couple. Let's see. How cool is it that the Peoria School District now has a peace initiative, and that 5 of our campuses are going to expand the work that was started on Centennial Campus with their Peace Pole. It's a fabulous partnership with the local, is it Peoria North Rotary? Or is it Peoria?
Peoria Rotary Club.
Rats, I always get those two
They
mixed
work very
up.
closely together.
Very
It's all good.
closely together. A partnership with them and us and the city of Peoria, so that is an amazing thing. It's going on our campuses. Also, 2 nights ago, ASBA was hosted by the Peoria School District. Ms. Stone, thank you for joining us as well. Every year, the School Boards Association goes out to the different counties. So we hosted the Western Maricopa County meeting and had quite a few other school districts come and learn a little bit about ASBA. They did elections, so Jill Humphreys was re-elected to be the Western Maricopa County director on the board. And our choir wowed the crowd and made us very proud. Ooh, that sounds kind of Seussish, doesn't it? It's very Seussical. Okay. Anyway, shout out to Mr. Schaefer up there at Liberty High School, who I understand has grown their choir program from 7 students to over 90 students in 2 years. Pretty amazing. And they sing so pretty, you can absolutely see why. And finally, some of you are aware that there's a nonprofit that operates within our schools called Golf in Schools. And they've just launched their golf academy. Tom Logering out at Sun City Country Club. I went to his the ribbon cutting for that, and our Kellis Cougars came out, their golf team, to talk about that. And the whole idea there is that young kids who participate in golf are learning not just athletics, but social skills that will help them throughout their lives. So that was a real fun, feel-good event as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
With 2 things. One, I had the opportunity to serve on your behalf on the calendar committee, so in the near future, we're going to hear an agenda item and a presentation. But I wanted to say thank you to Danielle. She's not here. Oh, there you guys are. And Erin, thank you so much for chairing the committee and helping. We had a great representation across the board, or across the district, and newcomers and veterans that served on the calendar committee. So we look forward to their presentation. So thank you for your time. And on Saturday of last week, we were all invited to attend the Elementary Student Council Life as a Leader. It was a half-day event. Ms. Myers, I want to say thank you for spending your Saturday with a bunch of educators educating us about finance and student activity. A lot of information. Mr. Stone was a great leader for all our staff, but ultimately we were there to serve the kids, and there was a lot of energy. Couldn't pass our wonderful presentation, our TED Talk from Dr. Stifler. He talked about 10 things that allude to being a leader, and I could go through the whole list, but one that sticks out to me And I believe that as educators, we are all leaders, and it is being loyal to those you serve during hard times. And we are a direct result of leaders going through challenging times, and we're still here and we still show up. So thank you for all your leadership, and thank you, Dr. Stifler, for your TED Talk.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, so this morning, I had the honor, privilege really, to attend the Centennial High School 2017 Academic Awards recognition, where 351 students were recognized for academic excellence, meaning they all had a 3.8 GPA or better for the prior school year. So what's really inspiring and impressive, with that number not only being, about 18% of their overall student body, is that number continues to grow year over year considerably. So I know we have these same stories across the district at other campuses. So it was definitely a representation of those stories, but certainly a moment of pride for me, to sit on this board and serve all those teachers and really leaders across the district to inspire and certainly nurture the creativity of our students. So congratulations to Principal Lopez-Lira and her leadership team there and all those students. Thank you.
Mrs. Doan?
Well, I would like to agree with Kathy about the ASBA county meeting that we had, and the choir was excellent. They were really good and happy. And I wanted to add to that, the culinary staff there at Liberty was fabulous, and I was able to talk to a couple of the young people working in the culinary arts program, and they were very excited. And they were running around trying to be in the background. So not to get noticed very much because that's the way servers work. But they did a very good job. The meal was excellent, and I was excited to see that. So good shout out to them.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize. There was one that I missed, and the gentleman sitting right in front of me here, a teacher at Heritage Elementary. And you've heard me speak before about Heritage, the personalized learning programs. But I was recently notified that there was some video taken of two teachers there at Heritage, one of them being, and I apologize, your last name? Scott. Of him and one of his counterparts there at the school, where they utilized certainly Office 365 and how they integrated that into the classroom. But I think the more importantly was that the Tucson Unified School District wanted to videotape what they were doing in the classroom to learn best practices, from a school within our own district. So yet again, just how we as a district continue to innovate, continue to think forwardly, and continue to, really adapt to the needs of our students and how they really benefit from, different, learning methodologies, and how our teachers, continue to innovate and understand how their students certainly prefer to learn and put them on a path of success. So thank you, Scott, for your leadership there at Heritage.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention, about 3 weeks ago, several board members went to the Peoria High School Wrestling Boosters third annual golf tournament luncheon, and I wasn't able to get the names of all the assistant coaches and the coach. I did mention them last board meeting, but I would like to mention them by name. So the head coach is Elmar Kobos. Supporting staff coaches are Jaime Armenta, Armando Gomez, Clint Worrell, Jose Sanchez, Gerald Taylor, Gilbert Garcia, and Richard Vega. I just wanted to mention them by name, so thank you very much. Okay, I guess that's it for this one. Anybody else? Good. Okay, next agenda item is consideration of approval of the consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening? Okay, then this is an action item. I would need a motion and a second to move it forward.
I move to approve the consent agenda item as it's been presented.
Second.
All right, members, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0. Next agenda item is agenda item number 13, report and discussion from the Superintendent Student Advisory Council.
Good evening again, President
Thank you.
Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. I'm here just to give you a very, very brief overview of our Superintendent Student Advisory Council. I think most of you are familiar with it, but for those who are joining us here or maybe watching our live stream, we, for a number of years, have really believed that we need to go straight to the source to get information on what is it we're doing well, maybe what could we improve in our schools, and the best source for that is really our students. And quite some time ago, put together the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, inviting the student body presidents from each of our high schools to come together on a quarterly basis and give us some feedback, share with each other on what it is that's happening at each of their schools, learn from one another, and of course, we walk away learning so much from each of them. So we just recently held our very first council meeting for this year. We have 3 more to go, but based on feedback from our governing board retreat, you all shared that you wanted the opportunity to hear from our students. So we thought, instead of providing you with that report ourselves, we would invite students here to give you that report tonight. So it is certainly my honor to introduce 2 members of the Superintendent Student Advisory. I'll invite them to join me up here. Mr. Riggs Miller, Student Body President from Cactus High School, and Abby Meyer, Student Body President from Liberty High School. So they will be here to provide you with a little bit more information on the Superintendent Student Advisory.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, and Mr. Dr. Schiffler. I am Riggs Miller, the Student Body President at Cactus High School. One thing that stood out to me at the meeting 2 weeks ago was you could tell that we were a unified school district. Once all the presidents got together, Mr. CFO Ken Hendricks, PR Miss Denrell Airy, and of course, Mr. Dr. Schiffler got together, it was comfortable and it seemed that we already knew each other on a personal level. Another thing that stood out to me was how we were all here to help each other. Set aside the rivals, Cactus versus Peoria, Liberty versus Sunrise, or even the new rivals, Cactus versus Sunrise. We all came together to help change every single kid's life at their high school. We didn't go to the meeting just to brag about our school or to show off how much better one school is than the other. Rather, we were there to give our ideas. So next time we all come together, we could speak about our improvements on our campus, allowing all schools to be truly unified by helping each other out. We were asked about equity, but honestly, I didn't quite know what that meant. After the meeting, I was determined to figure it out. I went around my campus asking teacher after teacher, staff after staff, and I finally got my answer, and I'm excited to share it. Equity. Giving every single student the same opportunity, but more importantly, also letting them know their worth. That every single student brings something unique to their campus, sending the message that girls volleyball is just as important as boys football. And a great example of that at Cactus is our PSBN records at least 1 game of every single sport. That's everything from football to swim, to track, to badminton, and so on. I believe that there's equity on our campus. We value everyone, and our students are afforded every opportunity possible. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. It means so much to me to be able to talk here today. I hope I can see you all in the near future, and thank you for everything you do for this district.
Nicely done, Riggs.
Thank you.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, and Dr. Stifler. I'm Abby Meyer, and I'm the student body president at Liberty High School. A little bit too short for this. And so some of the things that really stood out to me at the meeting, and I look forward to these every other month is when we do it. I'm so excited, and I always tell my student council, ask them if they have any questions for the board members, or if they have any questions for the other student body presidents. And it's extremely helpful because we share so many great ideas. Like I know that my council's doing one of the things I'm pretty sure Centennial told us about, and we really come together and come up with really great ideas. And one of the things that really stood out to me this meeting is that this year we're really trying to unify all of our schools, not just high schools, but also the feeder schools. And so we talked about going to each other's events, and I know we have I think some of them promised to come to Liberty's Homecoming Festival, so I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, we just kind of want to show our support. And I think one of the other things we talked about of showing support is the Centennial Student Body President was super passionate about raising for hurricane relief. So we talked about having a big festival to invite all feeder schools and all high schools, and all the profits will go to charity to hurricane relief. So we're super excited about that, and the student body presidents have been talking about that. But yeah, on the topic of equity, just to go off what Riggs said, one of a great example that Mr. Croto gave, John Croto, he was my old principal at Liberty. I miss him dearly because we were pretty close. But he gave an example because we were all kind of confused on the concept that if 5 students are trying to look over a fence, one student you might need to give 2 boxes to, one student you might need to give 3 boxes to, one student might not need a box. And so I was kind of thinking, and that's kind of the same of how girls volleyball is just as important as boys football, is that some students and some clubs need a little bit more to get involved and to enjoy their high school experience. And so one of the great things Liberty has going on, and that I've really tried to implement, I've talked to our president, our principal and our advisor, is we have a line leadership meeting every month. So we have all clubs and all sports, just the captains and presidents come, and we have them give the things they have going on, and we write it on a board, and we make an agenda, and so we all are going to go attend each other's things. So clubs are going to attend sports events, and sports events are going to support clubs in any of their fundraisers or any of their activities going on, and it's been pretty successful so far. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, I love the board meetings. They have a lot of insight. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to get a quick picture of them, and I'll send it to Danielle, and then you can send it to them.
All right. I'll start with Mrs. Connect.
Abby, you explained equity so beautifully. I think you should be a teacher. Really, very, very good explanation. I just picked some things out of the things that each of you said. Riggs, you know we're neighbors, right?
Of course.
You know your brother and my daughter are very good friends. It makes me miss being a cactus mom. It was really good. But thank you for your comments on unity and how important it is for us to be all one school district together. I think that's having you speak about it is an excellent illustration, as is when we have our joint athletics, when we have that at the end of the school year, when all of the high schools come together to celebrate their achievements. So thank you for that. And Abby, another thing, in addition to being a good teacher, I think you'll be a very good representative, because you talked about being a liaison. It's one thing to be a leader and to come and kind of keep that experience to yourself, but when you reach out and ask for input from other people and relay that information back and forth, that's a gift. So keep building on that.
Thank you.
Thank you both. You did an excellent job, both of you.
Ms. Sejar Martinez.
I always get excited because I was in your shoes a few years back. I served as a Centennial High School student body president, and one of my most memorable memories is meeting with the administration and having these roundtable discussions. And as an elected official, that's what you are, you're politicians, you get to learn these skills from the beginning, getting buy-in and showing worth to those you serve, and understanding what do those terminologies or words or things that you need to do for those you serve, what does it really mean to the people that you walk next to. So the fact that you are putting your boots on and getting out there, it's a great indicator of your future leadership, and I look forward to see what this year holds and what you bring to us and what the end result is of all your hard work. So thank you so much for all you do for our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
Yes, thank you for your leadership, without question. I think, when you were both speaking, what I kind of heard was your willingness to be adaptable, collaborate, and certainly welcome diverse thought within your conversations, all invaluable as you look to, college and certainly career and throughout your life. Really innate abilities. Something that's tough to learn, but so congratulations there. You talked about unity, equity, and certainly we are a unified district. So certainly appreciate your I guess, thoughtfulness to think beyond the high schools and really reach out to those feeder schools as well. There are obviously future high schoolers. But overall, your leadership, your passion for others and to be successful, thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stone?
I did want to say, I think it's a really good idea, and I noticed that getting you guys together seems to promote an expansion of thought and ideas, and I really appreciate that, and I think that it's a good idea, and you two are very good examples of leadership, growing into leadership, and I want to thank you for being here tonight and making this presentation and for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I just want to say thank you very much for being here also. And, competition is great between the schools, healthy competition, but it's good to see that you guys are working together and helping other schools out. So I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
President Pingarelli, if I might close to kind of summarize their remarks as they're talking about unity, and really you can see this shift in how they're all collaborating together, and case in point, as we're going to leave the first meeting, I'm passing around a sheet, and I said, if you can give me your email address, and what I'll do is I'll send it around to everyone, so you all have each other's email addresses, and they're like, oh no, it's okay, we're already on a group chat. So, they were already well connected, they're working together, and I think there are really wonderful things to come from this group, and future certainly in great hands when you get to be around our student leaders. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next agenda item is agenda item number 14, consideration recommendation for administrative appointment for the director of the Met Academy. Dr. Davidson, welcome.
Thank you, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Tonight, agenda item number 14 causes me to ask you simply to please consider recommending, or approving, I should say, the administrative recommendation and appointment to Ms. Barb Coakley to serve as the director of the Met Academy. And I see that you have posted our blurb that I'd like to read to the community and to our board tonight. If you'd like to, I'm not certain if you want me to read first, if you'd like to go through the motion and second.
No, please go ahead.
Go ahead and read? All right,
Yes.
very good, thank you. Peoria Unified School District tonight would like to proudly recommend Ms. Barb Coakley to be appointed to the position of Met Director. Ms. Coakley currently serves as the assistant principal at Liberty High School and has been there since 2014. She has been in the district since 2002, serving as a classroom instructor for business and math courses at Liberty High School and Sunrise Mountain High School. Prior to her educational employment, Ms. Coakley served 2.5 years as a software sales consultant for Lucent Technologies and served as a client business manager for AT&T for 9 years. During her business career, Ms. Coakley was responsible for providing training for corporations, promoting marketing materials, as well as being accountable for the overall profitability, revenue growth, and customer satisfaction for a portfolio of strategic customers in the Phoenix metropolitan area. She also developed strong relationships with key business executives and managed a sales team to ensure all opportunities were identified to exceed quota expectations. Mrs. Coakley earned a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Arizona, a master's degree in business administration from University of Phoenix, and a second master's degree in education from the University of Phoenix. She holds an administrative principal certificate, a secondary teaching certificate, and a career and technical education certificate with an emphasis in business and marketing. We're very excited to bring you this recommendation tonight, and I look forward to seeing your vote, so thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So I guess let's do this as we should, to have a motion and a second to bring it to the floor, and then vote and discussion.
I move to approve the recommendation for the Met Director, Ms. Coakley.
I'll second that.
All right, members, please cast your votes. Actually, and is there any discussion? Would anybody like to say anything? I probably should have done that before we voted.
Before the vote.
Never mind. Okay, so we're all happy, so we can have a happy discussion, I guess.
President Pingarelli, please note that Ms. Coakley had a previous engagement tonight, so she's not able to be with us here, but I will certainly pass on any information you'd like me to, and if you'd like her back in front of you again at some point, I'm certain she would be willing to do that. So
I think we'd all like to meet her at some point, so she's got a demanding job in front of her, so we welcome her.
Good.
So, and I apologize for I got just really gung-ho on the vote thing, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next agenda item is agenda item 15, first reading and discussion pertaining to proposed governing board policy HA.
Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, this is a first reading of a proposed policy. Let me go backwards here. To bring people back up to speed, the governing board discussed the Peoria Education Association's request for an MOU at its July 28th study session. Actually, this has come up many times over the years, I suppose. PEA's MOU request, Peoria Unified's Employee Handbook, current practice for meeting and conferring with employees, and the formal MOUs from multiple Phoenix area school districts were provided to school board members as background information for that discussion. Individuals from the Peoria Education Association, our Classroom Teachers Association, and the Peoria Principals Association also participated in portions of the discussion. At the conclusion of the discussion, the superintendent committed to further study the issue and to bring a proposal to be voted upon by the governing board at a future board meeting, like tonight. After further study and discussions with employee groups, AEA, our Association Advisory Council, ASBA, and administrative staff, a recommendation has been prepared. If you would open up the other PDF, please. So we currently don't have any policy in Section H. We're proposing to you that tonight would be a first read. We would bring it back for a second read as required for policy adoption, that the policy simply say, the superintendent shall establish procedures to meet and confer with staff regarding salary, benefits, and working conditions. That's something that we all believe in, but we haven't had a formal statement that we would do that. This is different than the MOU that was asked. The MOU, if you go back to the other screen, please. Sorry about that. Just to explain what that is. The MOU was actually asking to have a committee to work with one portion of our employees to discuss having this policy. I'm not comfortable with only talking with one portion of our district, but I know that this is a system that works very well in other school districts. This, go back to the policy, please. I'm sorry. This doesn't take away any authority from the governing board. It's to develop recommendations for what we should do with staff regarding salary, benefits, and working conditions. Additionally, we've been working on salary, especially through the budget committee with Mr. Hicks, for quite a while regarding salary has been there. We have need right now to further reach out to our employees about the appropriateness of our benefits package and get their input. We would use this for that. And working conditions is something that always comes up. So an example of working conditions is, okay, so we have Monday early release, but how are we using those Mondays? That would be an example of a working condition. Or about supervising students during lunch or those sorts of things. So again, this is a first read. I desire as much discussion as possible regarding this. I believe that, well, whatever on that, and I stand ready for any questions.
Do we have any public comment on this tonight?
Not aware
Okay, all right.
that we do. I believe that people have contacted the board on that, and there are people who are interested in this. But
Okay.
seeing as I think that people know that this is a first read, and it can't be done without a second read.
I know, I was just,
And people are keen to know what you believe, I believe.
okay. All right, then let's go to Mr. Sandoval. Would you like to start us off? If not, I can go to somewhere else.
I think
Try
it's
to mix it up.
certainly one that I think in our, at the beginning of the year, that we all discussed in our really kind of our strategic planning session, that the MOU is one that we felt that established a level of certainly, I guess, safe, supportive environments, and how we value and respect our teachers and staff. I do agree with Dr. Stifler that being uncomfortable with only reaching out to one vertical within the district, is certainly doesn't allow us to be fully informed from a holistic perspective. We want to make sure that, as we take a look at these types of policies, that it addresses, certainly every position that we have, again, within our district. That said, it looks like it's a working doc, and we'll realize the second read, but looking forward to understanding a little bit more in the findings and being informed and really implementing an MOU into the district.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Doan?
Is this the final wording probably that you're interested in, or?
Yes, ma'am.
I would be interested in having it a little more detailed as far as to meet and confer with the staff concerned. You know what I mean? It just says with staff. It doesn't say what staff.
Well,
and it's like,
can work on that, but can I explain, staff, that makes perfect sense, that question. We would pull a committee together, much like the budget committee, to do that, and the committee would have to be representative of the entire school district, is what's meant by that, but I can certainly work on
I'm
that.
sure it's meant by that, but I'd like it in there.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm interested in that, so that everybody knows by the document that their voice is going to be heard.
Okay. Mrs. Connect?
So my understanding, Dr. Stifler, is you are recommending this sentence in lieu of this proposal from the teachers.
Yes, ma'am. That proposal, though, was not policy. That proposal was to have an MOU, a contract with teachers that would get to something like that policy.
I remember over the many, many years, one of the fears that was expressed by people who were not in favor of adopting an MOU was that it was going to be such a long and laborious document, and this is what we were given. This is what we were given. And I think the points in here are excellent, and I think it's worthy of sharing. To discuss and generate solutions on matters of concern to all stakeholder groups, to include but not be limited to working conditions and salaries and benefits. Research the opportunity for the process to generate the issues collaboratively and use consensus as the decision-making model for the recommendations that will be forwarded to the school board. The process developed will confirm final decision making by the school board as the authority rests with the school board. Determine to the extent to which such matters so identified may inhibit or enhance the educational opportunities for students, using this as a priority for issue identification, and develop responses and solutions that will best serve the purposes of the district. So what I hear in this document is looking out for teachers, looking out for students, and looking out for the district as a whole. I think you said that, Dr. Stifler, that what you didn't like about this, that it was presented by one of the groups. For anyone who doesn't know, we have actually two formalized teacher groups and one group that is unassociated. So it's really a third. But during the discussion that we had at the retreat, we specifically said that this document, or whatever we end up with, would be inclusive for all teachers, regardless of an affiliation or lack of an affiliation.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I believe that this group had consensus that moving forward, that's what we really wanted to do. We wanted the entire process to be inclusive and to echo some of the comments in here, to be one of collaboration and consensus building. So if you are uncomfortable with the fact that only one of the associations is listed on this document, I would say that we certainly have the capacity to include the other groups and list them on this. I like what this says. As far as this goes, I'm not opposed to this being part of this, and what this says is the superintendent shall establish procedures to meet and confer with staff regarding salary benefits and working conditions. I think that, with all due respect, sir, that gives you an awful lot of authority, even though this does say that the board has the final outcome. What I would be more comfortable with is if it said that you will develop and propose procedures, and then let the school board, who gets the ear of some of the employee groups, have an opportunity to approve those procedures before they are actually implemented.
Okay, thank you. One possible way forward is to, once we have a policy, to immediately put a regulation that sounds very much like the language you just put right there to do that. I need to process some of that further on. I believe there is a fundamental problem with an MOU, and I know that's the word that we have been using for a long time, but an MOU is a contract. Well, who is it a contract with, and how do you sign that when there's that issue? So was seeking a way to demonstrate a commitment that this is how we need to behave in our district, this is how we need to do that, without undermining board authority as part of that process, or entering into a contract, which an MOU is a contract with a small portion of the district. Take all of that under advisement, but I think a regulation might be an easy way to encompass all of those things that you said.
I'm not sure I have a problem with it being a contract, and let me go back to a conversation that we've had again and again and again. We all, as a board, for years have said, if we had a magic wand or more authority, we would be giving our teachers greater salaries. Unfortunately, we are in a world that has had $4.5 billion cut from our state budget in education in the last 9 years, and so money is not forthcoming. Our teachers have been very understanding about that while we've had to cut programs and while we've had to go out to our local community to support our ML budgets. One thing that we could do, what I've said over the years is, in the absence of greater funds, one thing we can do is give them a greater voice at the table. And your predecessor and some of the other administrators would say, well, we're already doing what they want us to do. And my response was, well, if that's the case, and it would be a morale boost to put it in writing, then why wouldn't we?
And in fact, you've told me that
Yes,
before as well.
I have told you that.
Not just my predecessors.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Why wouldn't we?
Or we could just have more teachers run for governing board offices, and then we have them all at the seat. Sorry, I couldn't, I was laughing inside.
I'm done, for now. I reserve the right. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, everything that you just said, I echo. We talked about it at the retreat. I agree. If we're already doing it, if we say we're doing it, there's no reason why we wouldn't put it in writing. I think the analogy that I used was the marriage license. That said, I mean, one thing, the MOU to me, in addition to really showing our commitment to what we say we're going to do by establishing these, again, safe and supportive environments, inspiring environments for, all of our teachers and staff, and put it in writing, but it's also, it's a working document as well. And so, and I don't know where this may fit in, but, I think it is something that, continues to evolve a little bit, as, the need for the district to adapt to, the needs of its student population, et cetera. It grows, and it continues to grow. So that said, I mean, I agree with you, Kathy, 100%. It is something that will allow for a more larger voice, across, again, all service lines, verticals within our district. And I think that by allowing that diverse thought, it allows us to be smarter as a district, to realize and understand that feedback. So we're informed, and when we adapt, we base it on the key priorities that we are understanding from those who are in the front lines. So again, looking forward to integrating an MOU into the district as a whole.
Mrs. Seher Martinez?
So it's not a surprise. One of the reasons why I ran for office as an educator of this district, I did my student teaching here, and so that we can have a teacher voice. And it's great to hear all my governing board members echo that, and like to continue to hear that conversation. As I joined on, we all agreed that our vision was to support our teachers and that we wanted to continue to be a teacher-friendly district. So I definitely agree with Kathy and David, and then with Judy, I agree with you as well to be more specific. What are we giving our teachers, our staff members, so that we can, one, as leaders, be specific, be held accountable, and to David's point as well, our policies are always working, living working documents as we're about to go and review all of them. So even though we go forward this one statement, whatever we decide on, it's forever going to be a living document for the life of Peoria Unified. With that being said, no matter who's in our seats or in those seats or the seats in the classrooms, we always need to have all those voices at the table if we're going to continue to move forward, because they see angles that we all can't be at. So I would like to see, I would agree that this statement has flexibility, and I do like that, but I also believe in the history that I've experienced, the superintendent has had a lot of power, and we're in a situation where I would like to see our teachers and staff have that power as well. So adopting some of these items, I am supportive, in addition to including teachers that are not on this document, that cannot afford to be a part of any organization, or who choose to be a part of an organization that has different values. We want them as well at the decision-making table, in addition to staff, classified staff, and our administrators, because without our administrators, they see an angle that our teachers don't see. So it's important to have their voice. And I would like to see this document ratified that includes more of the voices specific, so that we can be all held accountable.
Thank you very much. Well, I first would like to thank everybody for all of the emails that have been sent and all of the information. I have, between this board meeting and when this comes up again, many people to talk to, and a lot more educating myself about this topic. So I look forward to it coming back.
I would like to add, I am a little more comfortable with a regulation and more policy than with contracts in this area. That's where I stand with that.
All right, any more discussion?
Contracts can be exclusive.
Mrs. Pingarelli, members
Yes.
of the board. An MOU is something different than a policy. If that's the wish of the board, I would suggest under future agenda items that someone request a formal MOU. Someone second that, then I will reach out to legal to try and figure out, how do you have an MOU, a contract with multiple organizations? And we'll prepare that. If that's what I think that I'm hearing that you would rather see. I believe that I do stand by what's presented here, that we can accomplish all of those things, that's the reason for doing this, by doing this, and that this is the right way to do this, and that an MOU is not the right way to do that. I will do whatever the board says, but I believe in the best interest of the district, this is a way, an appropriate way, to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And I would say not just teacher voices. I would say the paraprofessionals and the bus drivers and the maintenance men and the principals and everyone's voice as heard at the table, and to use a formal process to go forward to do that.
Okay, so I think we're saying the same thing, and there seems to be this roadblock about MOU. It's like a big bad word, MOU. Does it
Yes,
matter
ma'am.
what we call it?
I think it does.
Why?
It's legal.
Well, if we,
I think
if
that an
we
MOU
craft, if we craft an agreement that we agree on what it says, and we all sign on the dotted line to say, we're gonna stand by what we said, who cares what we call it?
I can't recommend to you that that's best practice going forward. I will do whatever the board directs, of course, but I can't
mean, if
recommend
that's
to you
your-
that that's the best practice going forward. And I've spoken to ASBA, others, lots of different groups in order to prepare. I know how small this is, but there's been a tremendous amount of background work to get to this point.
I understand. But from way over there, it sounds to me, this is why I hate having these meetings like this, but.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds to me that you're saying that you're willing to concede that these things on this list are things that you will agree to.
I think they're appropriate in a regulation. Yes, ma'am.
So-
Or nearly all of them. I didn't memorize all of them, but yes, I believe we ought to use the interest-based approach. I believe we ought to hire an outside facilitator to help us do that. I believe that I have experience doing that in previous districts. I understand how well that can work. I know how well that works in some of our sister districts. I believe that is an appropriate thing to do. I also believe it's appropriate to leave some flexibility with the board,
Well, that's in there.
not in the way that I believe it needs to be in there, that I would recommend to you that it's in there.
Well, maybe,
Again, I serve at your pleasure. I will do whatever you direct me to do and bring forward whatever you'd like me to do.
I don't care what we call it. I would like some formal document and agreement that, like Monica said, we can all hold ourselves accountable to, and everybody's on the same page and in total agreement with.
No, I just want to add that, I appreciate, Dr. Stifler, all of your work. I know you had to meet with many people over a number of months. I am not for a formal MOU. The meet and confer, I would consider, but not a formal MOU. I know at the study session, when we had talked about the MOU, it was like a document in process. So it was going to be one thing, and then it was going to go to something else. So that's what concerns me about the MOU. So,
Really, there is a call to public, and it is on this item, so it would be appropriate to call them.
okay.
Let me pull up my timer.
All set? Okay. Tina Berg?
Trina.
I'm sorry, Trina. Sorry.
Good evening, President Pangarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, and administration. Thank you. I know we've had lots of conversations about the term MOU. At this point, what we want to move forward is this. We don't want to get rid of the MOU idea, but if the MOU wording is a problem, let's get rid of it, let's back up and start looking at what we can agree upon and put those into regulations. We're okay with this. This is the direction we're comfortable with, and we as in Peoria Education Association, we're comfortable with this. I think we can hash out wording at another reading, and I think we will be involved in the wording of everything that we're going to do, but I don't want to get stuck on language. We need to move forward with this, and we need this now. I think this is a good time to be doing this. So please don't get stuck on language right now. Let's get our second reading and get this going at this point. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trina.
Mrs. Pangarelli,
Yes.
being 9 months completed, I do understand language is important because we do go through a lot of legal processes and looking at documents. So with that being said, language is important, not to discount. But to everybody's point that we've discussed, we don't want to get hung up on a process that we do need, and we've alluded to that. So for my understanding, what we need is, if we wanted to proceed, a governing board member would need to make a request of an agenda item to go back to legal counsel, excuse me, legal counsel, and get a proposed policy statement or regulation, whatever would meet the needs of the governing board, or what are we asking for specifically?
So regarding, Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, a couple of clarifications. Regarding a regulation, so the board makes policy and the superintendent makes the regulation. So how do we enforce that? So, and regulations, I committed to you my very first day that I will always bring regulations to you, but the policy does not say that that has to be, right? It is actually possible to start an interest-based negotiation process without board. There's nothing in board policy that prevents me just doing what everybody wants already. That's possible without an MOU. That's possible without the policy to do that. It's what we all want to do, right? I'm just trying to do it, I'm trying to advise you the very best I can regarding the policy there. So I can certainly craft regulation. I can work with staff, I can work with outside agencies to come up with a regulation. In my mind, you put a policy first that said, you know what, this is important that we do this, that we honor staff and we meet and confer with staff and we listen to them. Superintendent, put that in place. That's what we expect you to do. That's how I read this policy, that's what that would be. Not like you can do that, but we expect this to happen in our district. And then, like all regulations, you're expected to review those. And I'd already committed to bring those before you. I believe that that's an appropriate way to do that. Again, if you want an MOU, that's something different than this. It's not this agenda item. I did put that there on history on purpose. I believe the most appropriate way would be under future agenda items, say, we'd like you to draft an MOU and bring that before us. And then I would work with whomever I needed to work with to draft an MOU to bring that before you for a vote.
I've seen, Mrs. Pingarelli, and just one more statement. I've seen in other districts, as I've been researching, that not all districts have the MOU, but they do have an interest-based statement. So that was what you're referring to?
I could put that into the regulation. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. If that's the board's desire, I'm absolutely comfortable putting that into the regulation. That's the direction I intend to go.
Does the rest of the board have any problem with what is in this document? Because I go back to, I don't care what we call it. But I think, two things. I think that these need to be articulated in writing somewhere. And there needs to be some sort of evidence of consensus on it from the employee groups. And I had another thing to say, but it escapes me now. Something's in here, but it isn't out here yet.
Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, regardless of whether or not during future agenda items you ask formally for an MOU, I will prepare a regulation for your review at the next governing board meeting to support this policy. That looks very much like that.
Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, Kathy, didn't you request an MOU to be on a future agenda?
I think this is it.
Is this it?
This is it, right. The other thing I would say, Dr. Stifler, is if in fact that you do feel that these are valuable points, there's no reason, whether or not there's an MOU or a contract or an agreement or whatever we want to call it, we can start doing it today.
Yes, ma'am. I believe that.
Okay.
I think I even said that. Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Any other discussion? David, you look perplexed.
I'm just trying to understand process here. For me, in our world, I guess, in the more the private sector, MOU defines what we will do based on, a particular scope of work and based on what we're getting paid,
Right, contract.
So when we talk about interest-based negotiations, where we bring many parties to the table from across the district to go over key priorities within their own verticals, if you will, how those outcomes then become a part of this living, evolving MOU, I guess, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but just understanding interest-based negotiations and how those outcomes then become part of the MOU moving forward, right?
They can. They don't always, but in some organizations, they do, sir.
Explain that. I wish I knew more about it, but in my 11 years, we've never had it. So what are you talking about, David?
So, my wife, she's been with Phoenix Union for 24 years. They do have an interest-based negotiations process where they discuss amongst, against different departments, go over whether it be salary, working conditions, benefits, et cetera, and the outcomes of those negotiations, become a part of this now MOU that is started maybe as a 1-inch binder is now a 5-inch binder because it continues to grow and evolve. So that's where I'm headed on, the adaptability of this, whatever we're going to call it, as we, again, adapt as a district, to those key priorities and needs of our students, teachers, staff, et cetera. So it is a process to really integrate, other conditions, if you will, or policies or line items into the MOU, but it allows for the diverse thought that we're talking about that's in this current documentation. So I think it's similar to what we're talking about, but I think it's a process that we need to formalize to bring everybody together. I think it's the CTA, Trina, right? She brought it up in our PEA, sorry. She brought it up in our retreat, right? Interest-based negotiations. I think it allows for that diverse thought and those individuals to have a voice at the table. And then from there, making sure that those outcomes, become, part of this living document. So whatever we call it, an MOU, again, I've always said it, if we say we're going to do it, if we are confident and commit to it, there should be no reason why we wouldn't put it in writing.
Any other discussion? Dr. Stifler?
Thank you. That's very rich. That's a lot to process.
It is. All right. Next agenda item is agenda item number 16, consideration and possible action regarding selection of a bond committee. Mrs. Sehar Martinez?
Yes, thank you. This has been an item we've brought before us. We've talked in the past, our past processes, and before we go in to this process, I wanted to give some context. Based on last year, we did select a bond committee, and it derived from the boundary committee. The administration came in with 5. The governing board had 1 pick each. And I believe, Danielle, was there a total of 11, 10? How many total for last year's bond committee? Yes.
President Pingarelli and Mrs. Sehar Martinez, the boundary committee or?
Well, we took 5 from the
committee?
boundary committee, and then we put them on the bond committee. So do you, Mr. Hicks and Ms.
10.
Total 10, okay. So with that being said, we created a bond committee, and I was new to the process, and the current policy states that the board president and the superintendent proceed, make a recommendation, and bring it to the board. What we discussed in the study session, which is to change that, since it is a committee for the board, we were elected by the community, we would like to have community across the district. What I personally felt that boundary was not representative of the full district that we serve. So I requested that we bring this forward to how the board would like to proceed with this next bond committee. And as we discussed, it will start in November. Mr. Hicks will be the chair and lead forward so that they can make a recommendation at the beginning of next year, so a potential action item for a future bond. With that being said, we also brought up the interest form, which is new this year, and we just went through the experience with the calendar committee selection process. Danielle solicited, our PR solicited community members to participate. We had new members and we had representation, and it was on a first-come, first basis for that process. I've had some conversation with Mr. Hicks, and an odd number is preferred. Is something that we could potentially consider. I like the interest form so that some of the feedback I received as one governing board member was I never knew that there was a committee we could be a part of. So if we have this ongoing process where they can just put their name in a list, at any time the board needs a committee, we could go through this list and then we can reach out to them, so it's ongoing. And they have access to us at any time. Ultimately, the goal of tonight is to formalize a selection process so that our administration can go forward with that process and they can start in November, as we have a lot of work to do, to be done.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun. I wanted to get actually Dr. Stifler, if you would like to
Actually, I'd like to yield to Mr. Hicks, who has been reaching out to other districts and how they handled that, and I believe the board would benefit. It's not complete, what he's been able to find out, but Mr. Hicks, what have you found out?
And thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. I know this was kind of put on last minute. We were trying to get this with the timeline of November. Some board members weren't going to, or at least one board member wasn't going to be here next board meeting. So we wanted to make sure we were kind of on a good time frame. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler. I reached out to, I think I sent an email to about 15 or 16 of them and got about 3/4 of them responding, just trying to find out. About half of them don't have a committee at all. They just do the work with the admin and directly with the board. The other half have committees. The average size of the committee is 14. I would say that just reaching out, it seems like one thing that was really nice, learning from what some of them do, they start with the board sets the parameters. They set the sandbox. Hey, we don't want to raise taxes. We want a size of X, Y, Z. It comes directly from the board, so they know what they're working with and dealing with in that sense. Best practice also, this is no surprise, things that we've talked about or that are being talked about right now, is having geographical representation across, and so that is also something that goal. The other goal is having a teacher and, not goal, but another that you look at, of those that responded that had a committee, the majority had representation from teachers, classified, admin, parents, and community members. So they tried a diverse group. So it seemed like roughly average about 3 per group is what they were looking at. So the other thing you probably just heard is we've now heard a lot. There's no one way that everybody's doing it the same way. There's probably trying to meet the needs of each individual community, and that's where you guys come in.
Mrs. Pingarelli, if I can add one other consideration. One thing you may consider is that one strategy that our district has used in the past and some other districts use is that committee goes on and becomes the PAC that is fighting to pass the committee, to pass the bond. And so I would just have that political consideration in the back of my mind, who's on the committee and who's willing, once the committee work is done and the board has made the recommendation, who's willing to carry the message forward should there be a success, should the board decide to call for the election. And what do you see the relationship between a possible future PAC and the committee that you've selected?
I think they're two very separate groups.
Okay.
I think they're, and in fact, let me review that policy. That may be something we want to adjust moving forward.
And it's right there. It says we can't use any district resources to promote the election or that. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of history of what's been happening before. Please scroll Go to the.
Okay, so in that last sentence, it says, as the need for a bond issue arises, a citizens committee. I think we should add there some verbiage that talks about, that articulates that
The other one.
that the PAC, should there be a PAC, is completely separate from the district.
They absolutely need to be, that's required by law.
And in fact, should this even be in our policy? It's a completely separate entity.
Agreed. We are board approved. We are about to undertake with ASBA to go through all of our policies to clean up.
Right, I
Dangling
don't
chads.
think that belongs there, and I think the fact that it is there is probably a little confusing.
Do you have any more comments, Mrs. Knecht?
Nope.
Mrs. Doan?
So Monica, you said probably an odd number is preferable for consensus purposes?
That's from my understanding of Mr. Hicks. I know I had a brief conversation. What was a number, since you lead the chair, what was your preference? And you said an odd number.
Madam President, members of the board, yeah, I think just in case when it comes down to voting, you like to have an odd number so that it always breaks the tie. I would also say the average was 14, odd would be 15 is what I would probably lean towards. I think under 20 would be preferable just because as you get large groups, it's harder and harder to maintain them. And so the smaller the better in that.
It's harder for them all to get together for meetings.
It could be harder to get to meetings.
Mrs. Pingerelli, I know I already talked, sorry. I guess I would say, because I don't, we're kind of talking about a lot of different things without a lot of focus. I guess I would say, what are the problems that we're trying to fix? I heard one, that we want more geographic diversity on the group, and I think we agree that that's something we can fix. What else? What are we trying to fix here?
Based on my last experience, we had 5 from the governing board and the rest from the administration. So if it's a committee, it's a bond committee for the governing board to make a decision, it should be representative of the board picking the committee members. And to be candid and upfront, I would like to see each governing board member have 2 selection in that process, and then the administration have the 3, 1 from each group, teacher, certified, and administration.
That brings people onto the committee who have a bias to think like the board members that selected them.
That will go for the remaining of politics.
Our committees need to be made up of community members at large.
Correct.
Not hand-selected by people who are going to say, and I want you to think like this.
And that's the same argument that we could have for administration. We want them to push a bond that doesn't represent equality, just like the last bond did not represent the South. So we can have that same conversation and argument on other ends, and if we are elected officials by the community, the 2 that we pick and the community members that we serve will represent the voices that voted me in, that voted you in, that voted our other members.
I think, no, because.
So are you wanting to, let me just be clear, prevent the voice that doesn't agree with us on this committee?
No, I want people to come to the table without preconceived ideas. I want them to be open to the discussion and open to the information that they receive.
And how are you going to guarantee that?
Well, you just said that we're going to have an open list of volunteers that would be able to serve on any number of committees. That would be a good start. Random people from the community you want to serve.
Correct, so that we would have the interest forms as we've done, so we get anybody to put in. So the committee forms would all go to the governing board, and every governing board member pick from the list.
We may be able to overcome it, but we don't have very many of those forms right now. I believe it's less than 10.
Correct, so that's why the push would be everybody who's ever interested in serving on the bond committee. We have 4,000 employees. I'm sure they know somebody who would like to, who've said shared interest. Now is the time to put the form in, hence starting the process now so that we finalize the bond committee during October, and then in November, Mr. Hicks has his list.
Mr. Sandoval, do you have any input?
So for me, I mean, I agree. The having individuals unbiased and no predispositions to sit on these committees, I think is certainly critical to outcomes that are very thoughtful and certainly non-political. Which we all know these seats are non-political seats that we're sitting in now. Danielle, the I'm going to call it a calendar committee. Was that right, or is that correct?
Yes.
How are those individuals selected?
President Pingarelli, Mr. Sandoval, we received roughly 25 applications for, if my memory is serving me correctly, for the calendar committee. The way we went about selecting those individuals from the committee interest forms, we plotted them all geographically on our district map, and were quite surprised with the vast diversity in the representation across all aspects of our district. In particular, for this committee, we were seeking both representatives that were employees, also parents. We were also looking for those that represented elementary and high school, in addition to the geographic representation. So after they were all plotted, we went through and selected those that met that criteria. Where there was duplication or overlap, we defaulted to those who had submitted prior to someone else. We went then in as kind of a first come, first serve order from that standpoint, where we had multiple. We had representation of too many high school or too many elementary. We were also in this committee looking for a little bit of a balance of those who had served in the past with those who were new to the committee.
Gotcha. So I'm wondering, I mean, I'm going to call it a bench, how we, continue to build on our, committee bench, if you will, volunteer bench. And even repurposing, some of those lists. I mean, certainly we always want to refresh that bench and have fresh, new, innovative ideas. But, I know even with technology, how we drop a list in and scramble it and randomly pick individuals. I know Excel does it. That could be a way that we can find individuals that are unbiased, that certainly just want to serve the district, which you mean serving our community. But I think there lies our bigger challenge. I mean, those 2 points, Monica, that you made, and Kathy, not only having individuals without any predisposition, but also making sure that our community, our entire district is represented, across many variables. So that said, I mean, it's how do we do that? And that's the question. But maybe it is leveraging technology, repurposing some of these lists to select those individuals to sit on the committee.
Well, I think that maybe for myself, I want somebody who's very analytical. I think that you're going to have everybody on the committee, no matter who they are, no matter who we pick, will have some sort of maybe not preconceived notions, but will have their experiences that they bring to the committee. I've heard such great things about Mr. Hicks on the last committee, in the last several committees, and I think that Mr. Hicks is a great chairperson and can give all the data that is needed for the people on the committee to go through. I don't know if you have any words of Mr. Hicks of how the last few committees, or if you have any advice.
Madam President, members of the board, I
it's
have
an
no
open
advice
question.
for the governing board in this. I would say I have already talked to a few teachers. They're all interested. So right now, I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about teachers' voice in this. A lot of times we rely on their backs to get things done in a lot of sense. And right now, I haven't heard anybody include them. The support staff, I'll be honest, there is no one best way. I do like people that are, I know that we want a geographical representation of the entire district. We talk right at the beginning that we're we're a unified district, that we care about all parts. So somebody that's coming from one part does not only care about theirs. We're going to look at everything, and we're going to go through the whole entire process. And it's not territorial. We don't start with a process that only looks at, hey, now let's just look at the north, let's just go to central, let's go east, west, south. It does not happen that way. So we look at everything. We'll get analysis from from a demographer. We're probably going to outsource to get some additional information. We're going to look at our facilities. And right now, the biggest also is technology. I mean, we're hearing from teachers as we go around from site to site, where is the teacher technology? Where's the next? Well, it's only funded from the 2012 bond. So if there's next, it's coming from the 2018 bond. And so that would also. So there's no magical number. There's no magical group. There's no, if you have everybody from the south, that means they're going to ignore the data from the north. It's going to be data. And we're going to look at information analysis. And so we need people that are willing to be there and have an open mind.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Doney, you have something else?
Pardon me. I agree with Ms. Sejar Martinez about we do need, I believe having each of us pick two is fair and would be representative, and with administration picking, and we do need a teacher, an administration, and we do need those people on. What would that give us, 13?
13. One classified, one certified, and one admin.
Yes.
I just can't, I'm sorry, I cannot see the need for the model that you're talking about. A majority of this board in the last bond committee appointed a minority voice that turned around, and despite the fact that they were the minority voice in the committee, made their recommendations to this board, and this board agreed with them and voted down a bond in 2017 against the recommendation of the committee and administration. So now you're saying that you need double the voices on a committee that already influenced you, or you influenced them. I would say it was mutual. Now you're saying you want double the amount of influence on that committee. I don't understand that.
The committee was created with 5 people from the northern who needed a new school. So if your argument is to say an unbiased precedence, they came in with needing a school, needing 2 schools and PTS. So there's 5 votes for a bond at any cost. No matter what was being presented, as long as their schools were on there, they were going to be. And 100% of the committee, which was not presented on that evening, was they agreed to a bond. That was not presented. The timing was the question, and this is why we're here.
And Mr. Hicks, the last bond committee, if I remember right, it was, they must have met at least, not this past one, the time before, like 3 months at least. And then I felt the problem too, one of the things is the last bond committee met for 3 weeks, and I don't know how many sessions. So that's why we wanted to get this started earlier, so that community members can meet over a longer period of time.
So I think we could all agree that there's no doubt that we want a very diverse representation across the district on these committees. Mr. Hicks, quick question. On some of the research that you've done, I know there's varied numbers of individuals on the committee. How many, do we have knowledge of how many members of that committee were selected by board members? Like, was it 2 each, or was it one?
Excuse me. Madam President, members of the board, if I understand the question, it's of the districts that responded that had a committee, how many were selected by a board?
Correct.
None that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
And how many of them were the board did all the work?
Madam President, members of the board, it looks like around 4, maybe 5 districts. It was between the administration and board directly.
So we could do the work.
The board went through and vetted.
Madam President, members of the board, I didn't get into details with those group, but it was presentations, multiple. I can't tell you if it was 1, 5, 10, with the board to go through the projects, what is in, before they approved a project list in that sense, or for calling for the bond. I do not know how many meetings that was with the board. It could have been one.
Gotcha.
Mrs. Pingerelli, I will highlight, I did like the boundary process when you went out with the first decision to the community, and you had a community forum, and the committee took back all that feedback, went out, came up with a second draft, and went out for another community forum. I would like that process in the future.
Dr. Stifler, is that possible in terms of cost? I know that was, I think, a tremendous,
For those community forums?
yeah, so
There's minimal cost
Okay.
associated with. They can be done,
that would be good.
if that's the will. I would say, you do also have policy that other districts don't have this policy that says you're going to have a citizens advisory committee. Most districts, I'm not aware of any other district, Mr. Hicks, we're not aware of any other district that actually has this policy that says you'll have a citizens advisory committee. It is your policy, so I'm going to recommend that you follow your policy and you have a citizens advisory committee.
Yep.
All right, well, I would like, since we all are elected, and I would like to have probably one or two picks for myself. My last pick was somebody that was very opposite of myself, but very analytical, and that was important to me. You can say it was biased all you want, Mrs. Connect, but, I mean, I don't care if the board needs to get together, put their picks out, and come together and discuss it.
You can say it.
I just want to hash it out so this can get out there and get going earlier, or at least on the time frame that Mr. Hicks is proposing for November.
Madam President, members of the board, if I could just ask for clarification, if the board, to ensure geographical representation, it's hard for this all to happen simultaneous with all multiple groups. It almost has to be done either out in the open or one first, or I'm not sure I could follow everything. So if we could just have extreme clarity in this, that would be greatly appreciated.
So then I move that the board move forward with a committee process of each selecting 2 members from the community based off the interest-based forms, and the district assign 3 picks, an administrator, certified and classified staff.
I strongly disagree. In that case, whether it's this board, with this committee or any future committee, if that was the case, then the majority of the board would always dominate the committee.
It is a board advisory committee. And unless you're spending a life term on this committee, or on this board, then anybody at any point.
It's a waste of people's time if the decision is already made ahead of time. And that's a complaint we hear about committees off and on throughout my tenure, is if there's already a direction or decision made before the committee is convened, then you're just wasting people's time. And I respect people more than that.
Mr. Hicks, not this last bond committee, and the previous bond committee, how many minorities did you have serve on that committee? Do you recall?
You know, Madam President, members of the board, we don't collect the ethnicity data in that sense. So I can't speak to that at all.
President Pingerelli, I might also add, we do not ask for any of that information on the current form.
Mm-hmm.
We do not collect that on the committee interest form currently.
So I guess for me, I mean, when we take a look at the number of individuals that the board will nominate to be on these committees, I mean, is there, I mean, a case study? Is there anything that dictates or states if the board is able to, or if the board policy is that each board member elects 2 individuals versus 1, that there's going to be a more positive outcome with, a bond or whatever it is that the committee is charged with?
Madam President, members of the board, There's no case study that I'm aware of. I don't know that people get into that detail of it. I think it's all anecdotal or circumstantial based on each individual.
Yeah, because so for me, I mean, when we talk about having a committee that is representative of our district, representative not only from a community perspective, but also a capacity as associates of the district to the different verticals, teachers, staff, admin, et cetera, or actually on these. So that said, I include all that with regard to diversity. I think for me, allowing each one of us to nominate one individual onto these committees, I guess will influence that diversity of individuals to sit on these committees. I don't feel that we need to have two individuals that we each select to sit on these committees. Certainly in favor of what Kathy's speaking to, and certainly I don't feel that it's going to make a difference with regard to the committees that are charged with particular campaigns, key priorities, et cetera.
Ms. Pingerelli?
Yes.
I would like to say that I don't know about Ms. Connect, but I have not made up my mind. I don't have any preconceived notions. That is the reason for this committee. I'm looking for people that will look at information and give me the information I need. That is the purpose of the committee. And with that said, I would like to second Ms. Cejar Martinez's motion.
Well, before we go to a vote or further discussion from the board, we do have one public comment, and I'd like to hear from the public, and then we can consider discussing more.
Madam President, before we start voting, just as I wrote it down, is that what I heard? So if it could be reread back, just because what I heard was admin certified, classified, 2 per board member based on the interest-based forms, and right now we don't even have enough forms for 2 per. And so just if we could clarify, does it have to come from the forms or not, just because you could be putting something in place that might not even happen? And then the second question is then geographic equity or diversity. If board members are doing it, they're either coordinating with each other or they're going to send it to the district to hope that we then select which ones are or aren't, to make sure we have the whole geographical area. Do you understand the timing? Like, I'm trying to figure out how that would work with the timing to make sure we're meeting all those needs, or is that not a need now, or not a outcome we're
No, I
looking
think
for?
that would be, it still needs to be highly considered. So I don't know, Dr. Stifler, if you can give a little direction if the board chooses to, and you look at them, if we can try to make sure that there is a diversity of people. I'm not quite sure how to get all the moving pieces together as we would like.
Well, I believe there's a motion that says that that each of you would select 2 and administration would select 3. Perhaps one way that's close to that is that you start with there, and then Mr. Hicks told you that a committee, certainly less than 20, that would be 13. We allow that the superintendent to be able to recommend names to the board to balance the committee. For instance, if nobody invited a developer to the committee, then the superintendent would be expected to reach out to a developer. And I'm just winging it here, right? But to allow, or there's nobody in the fastest growing area, or there's no one in an area that we're concerned with small schools, if that's the interest of the board. But there's a motion on the table. We're going to make whatever committee work. Mr. Hicks is going to lead that. We have taken steps to where we had received some criticism before about our data, to ensure that we have data from outside to present to the committee going forward. We don't have that yet, but we've engaged help to do that. I guess my advice is, we didn't pass the last bond, but we passed many other bonds in this district for a very long time without these concerns arising on how the committee was built.
All right. Well, let's, thank you very much. for your-
Sorry that wasn't particularly helpful, but there is a motion on the table, and you do have a request to speak as well. Yeah.
Yes. Then let's go first to our public comment from Rick Guttridge, and then we will go back to discussion.
Thank you, President Pingarelli, members of the governing board, Dr. Stifler. I was on the last bond committee, and I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I feel compelled to, particularly with respect to Mrs. Connect's comments. I believe she thinks I was biased in what I presented, you know, when I came to the board with my position. And I looked at data, and I looked at the information that had been provided by this district to us on the previous bond committee, and I disagreed with the amount of money that we were trying to ask the community for, and I also very much disagreed with the timing. The community told you no the prior year, and they meant it. And to go back and ask them again that quickly, I thought was a mistake, and I thought it would have failed. And that would have put this district in the position of having to go back to the community for a third time in a row. And, you know, the old saying about 3 strikes, you're out. I do believe the district needs to pass a bond, but I think it needs to be a smaller bond, and I think it needs to be a lot more targeted and focused than what we presented the last time. Dr. Stifler, you and I spoke right after that meeting.
We did.
And you made some comments that I took to heart. I thought that you provided some insight that I thought was really good. And I actually kind of wanted to speak with you and Mr. Hicks about a strategy moving forward on how we might go about passing this bond.
Thank you, sir.
But Mrs. Connect, you are as biased in this process as I am. And to sit up there and pretend that you're not is just a charade. You want the bond to pass no matter what. And you guys represent the community. You represent the taxpayers who are going to pay for this bond. So you get 2 votes. Mrs. Martinez, you get 2 votes, and everybody else gets 2 votes on the establishment of the committee. That's fair because you are representing the community when it comes to this. It's not a preconceived notion that this bond should pass. It's what the community decides should pass. And as representatives of the community, you represent us. You were elected to represent us. And we're entrusting you to pick the board members as representatives of the community to provide you that input. I'm really politically active, and I think you all know that. And I'm telling you that if you want to go to Legislative District 22 or 21 or 20 and get a bond pass, then it has to meet some certain constraints. And those are the biases that I'm coming to the committee with if I happen to be picked to serve on it, which I'm willing to do. But to presume that I'm biased and other people are not is totally unfair. And I'll stop with that.
Thank you.
One last thing. I think the committee should be 11, not 13.
Mrs. Connect, would you like to?
My bias is that we're charged to do what's in the best interest of the school district, to use our taxpayers' dollars effectively and efficiently, and provide a quality education for the people within our community. I think what's happening tonight is a political power grab, and I don't support each board member having 2 selections on a committee.
We are a public entity supported by a government that selects in an election process of all these seats. We cannot ignore the fact anymore that this is a political arena. And if we keep ignoring that, we are going to lose every time. Every time.
We have not lost every time.
Do I not recall the 900, what's the billions of dollars we've lost in public education?
We're talking about this bond. this
Exactly. And we lost last time 20% because educators need to get political, and that is the end of the story.
Mrs. Pingarelli? Two things. One, there's a motion. You'd asked me for advice, and I'm sorry I wasn't prepared before. I think I have a proposal for you that's somewhere in the middle. I suggest that you direct administration to bring you a slate of individuals. We'll bring the best that we can. We'll have it geographically diverse to the degree that we can, and that the governing board use a process to select from that list. You can add further people to that list, but how do we? I'm asking that you adjust. I'm recommending to you that you adjust how it's been done in the past, where we have brought you a list. We'll bring you a bigger, and you pick from within that. If you want to each add how to do that, you just send me those names ahead of time, and we'd put those in there. But if the concern is to get geographical, if the concern is to get different perspectives, a teacher perspective, a businessman perspective, a mom perspective, or a dad perspective, charge me with bringing you a slate to choose from. In order to break, if we're going to go for a bond, I believe that the board needs to be unified to do that. It simply will not pass if our board is not all behind it. And if we're not all behind something from the very beginning, that seems an ill omen to me.
So very quickly, and I do agree. I mean, we represent not only the 37,000 plus within our district, but also the just over 4,000 in our associates, and I believe it's what is it, about 100? I don't know, not sure with the city of Peoria, but the community within the city of Peoria as well. That said. And I think we all would agree, in these community meetings that we had when we were redistricting the district, that the common narrative was that every member that spoke, the majority of the members that spoke certainly spoke to the fact that we needed a bond, and they would be all for it. That said, I think maybe one way we can influence the diversity that we all keep talking about, to making sure that, representation on these committees are, across different works of life with regard to the district and the community is, as we rotate through these different initiatives and in building these committees, maybe there's a term, and that's probably not the right term, but maybe there's a way to make sure that each committee is made up of different individuals each time, versus having similar or same individuals over and over serving on these committees, as a thought, maybe as a guide or a guideline within our policies as we develop these committees.
Can I readdress the idea of not going through the exercise or not asking volunteers to sit through a process if the decision is already made? And I'll own my bias. I sat through those boundary committee meetings and heard those parents. I sat through the presentations by our administration. I sat in on two committee meetings from the bond. I don't need to be convinced that we need to go out for a bond. I was all in when we voted last time. So I don't care if you put, 6 anti-tax activists on that committee that come up and say, we don't need a bond after all, or if they are going to be in favor of a partial bond or whatever for some other political reason. I know that we need a bond. I've been paying attention this last year. So do we really need to reconvene a committee when I believe that we've already heard everything that there is to hear about why we need a bond and to build new schools in the north and to maintain the buildings in the south. What else is there to say? Why are we going to ask volunteers from our community to give up more time and energy when it's all been talked about already?
It was talked about, Mrs. Connect, for 3 weeks, and I don't know, was there three different meetings, Mr. Hicks? It's hard to put all that data and have people go through it in 3 weeks. That's why we're starting early, and I stand behind the board picking the majority, well, actually, not really the majority.
Yes,
Two-
the
no,
majority.
No, two apiece, but then listening to Dr. Stifler, and if he sees that there is a need for somebody from another area that we haven't, we've overlapped in some of our areas, that there's ability to add to it, to bring it back and add people, keeping an odd number and keeping it below 20. So,
Well, I see this clearly for what it is, and obviously I'm in the minority, so let's get this over with.
any more discussion?
Yeah, I guess for me, I mean, if not one, then none. I mean, I don't know that we should have a say on who should sit on the committee, maybe an say on taking a look at the list that was selected to make sure it addresses the key priorities that we're talking about now, meaning representation across the district, the diversity of that committee, again, based on whether it be ethnic-based, life stage, lifestyle, capacity within the district, maybe having that, decision, just kind of formalizing the list. But, for me, it's, I don't know that we need to have a selection on these committees.
Any more discussion? Okay. Mrs. Seja Martinez, can you just repeat the motion since we've been discussing for quite a while?
I move that the board be given the opportunity to select 2 members for the bond committee from the interest forms submitted, and the administration be recommending 3, 1 administrator, 1 classified, and 1 certified. And that our superintendent, have the flexibility to add any additional members to serve as subject matter experts on the committee.
Well, I'll second that.
All right. Members, please cast your vote. All right, passes 3-2. Next agenda item. Agenda item 17, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities. Dr. Stifler.
Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, I'll accelerate here. So, update regarding major lawsuits pertaining to education right now. There are 2, of course, one regarding ESAs, one that's challenging the legitimacy of the referendum request. Have no further update on that. That is going through the process. Regarding capital funding, that is also going through the process. So the process looks like who are the defendants and are they going to be represented by attorneys? So that's appearing to be a very slow process. It's been reported quite widely lately, not a surprise to anyone in this room, that there's a teacher shortage in Arizona. And so what have we seen lately here? That Wallet Hub ranked Arizona the very worst state to be a teacher. They said that there were 21 indicators, and they range from income growth potential to class size to safety. The Morrison Institute study, that's out of ASU, recently said that that our teachers are leaving because of heavy workload, low pay, and belief that they aren't supported. And then most recently, our Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association, and it was reported widely in the press, that across 135 districts and charters, and we're part of this, that we reported in this, and we're doing, I want to be really clear here, we're doing better than most of our peers on this. We have great people, and mostly we get to hold on to them. But across 135 districts and charters, 526 teachers have quit so far this year. 147 of them just left during the middle of the day. As job amendments, there are still 1,328 teacher vacancies that where we don't have a formal vacancy. We have nearly 2,500 people who don't meet the teaching standards. And this was a new statistic for me that 42% of Arizona teachers hired in 2013 quit by 2016. And among charters, that number was 50%. So what's being done about that? Well, one effort, and Governor Ducey said it's not going to fix this. It's not a silver bullet, I think is his direct words, is Teachers Academy that was released this week. This is about tuition waivers at Arizona's major universities, NAU, ASU, U of A. Tuition waivers this year would be for 236 students. That tuition would be waived for 1 year for every year that you teach. The scholarships are provided. There's new money in this. Governor Ducey twisted the arms of each of the universities and said that they were going to pay for the scholarships out of money they already had. And then perhaps more importantly, and Ms. Davy, thank you for, I'd like to see the remainder of my time. Ms. Davy, if you'd join me at that mic over there, and would you update the board, please, on where we are on letter grades?
President Pingarelli, Governing Board, and guests, and Dr. Stifler. I'm going to keep this very brief tonight because we are limited in what we can share. We literally started pulling the labels down at 5 o'clock this evening. So even though there is a few handful of us that are playing with the labels, they cannot go public until October 9th. So they are officially embargoed so that Danielle and the principals and everybody can come to understand how their labels are formulated. We'll go with that. Okay, so I'm going to stick with three things. What are the main three things we want to think about as we move forward? First of all, there will be less A's in 2017 than there was in 2014. That's the same for everybody across the state, and it will be the same for Peoria. We are not going to be an exception. AZ Merit is a much more rigorous test than Ames. Our pass rate used to range from Ames in the 70s up into the mid-80s and a couple schools at the 90s. With AZ Merit, we are in about the 40% range. So that's one of the things that we're talking about with that sort of change in rigor. You wouldn't expect as many A's, and the state board went about that quite a bit. Peoria will continue to stay competitive with our peers, though. So what we're seeing is that we're falling where we normally fall with our competition, even though we do some great things, and we look forward to sharing some of those things that we've done when we're able to talk more in depth about the labels. Our department is very much preparing to provide the schools, the administrators, and the districts with the detailed data so that they can understand a little bit more about these details and how they can successfully use it moving forward. But that's pretty much the update on A through F.
So October 9th?
October 9th.
Everything goes public. Thank you very much, Ms. Davy. Ms. Pingarelli, here ends my report.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mrs. Pingarelli, may I comment on that? One thing, Dr. Stifler, we tend to talk about a teacher shortage, and to be totally clear, it is not a teacher shortage, it is a teacher crisis. Arizona has plenty of teachers to teach, should they choose to be in the classroom. But as you illustrated in your stories about people actually leaving in the middle of the day, they're leaving the profession and they're leaving their jobs, which is tragic.
It is absolutely technically true that there are enough people certified to teach in Arizona to cover all of the vacancies.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Next agenda item 18, requests for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval? Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
I do have one item, actually, and May we get a report and review and present our policy and current practices and gifts from vendors?
Gifts from vendors. Could you be more specific?
Monetary gifts, what our current policy states, and what our current practice has been. Getting clarification on relationships with vendors that we deal with within PUSD.
Of course, well, I'd need a second, but
I would second that one.
the answer is of course. Perhaps I can talk with you for more specifics of what you're looking for. I mean, policy part's easy, the law part is easy, the regulation part is easy. Some of that other stuff, I need more detail.
Okay.
Mrs. Connect?
No.
Okay. All right, I have nothing tonight either. Next agenda item. Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report. And this is on the website for anybody interested. Thank you very much. Next agenda item 20, District Enrollment Report for the month of August 2017. And that is also on the website for anybody that would like to look at their particular school of choice. Thank you. Next agenda item. Agenda item 21, Report on Upcoming Meetings and Events. Again, the Fall Patron Tour is going to be October 18th at 8:30. It's it's a good thing to go on. I think all board members have gone on several. So anybody in the community that is interested, starts at Ironwood on October 18th at 8:30. Thank you very much. Next agenda item 22, Draft Agenda for October 12th, 2017, Regular Board Meeting. Thank you very much. Agenda item 23, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Does any board member like to readdress anything we've spoken about this evening? No. Okay. Agenda item 24, consideration for adjournment. I would need a motion in a second.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Members, please cast your vote. All right, looks like we're going home. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Do you have anything signed tonight?
Diane, do you have anything?
And do we have
people to sign
anything to
tonight?
sign?